Welcome, everyone, to Color Commentary. We are your Pauper commentators, Michael Petrick and Adrian Guarzales. How's it going, Adrian?
Great.
Is it really? I mean, we've both been trapped in meetings all day, but okay. I can appreciate your optimism, if nothing else.
Yeah. I am optimistic.
You are. That you are. All right, we got some upkeep to take care of. First off, do you like old art or even reasonably new art within the last century, I'd say?
Humans have only been on this planet a modicum of time. It's all recent.
Okay, we're starting this one off in high spirits. But if you like art from, assorted periods of time, I highly recommend you check out Original Magic Art. They provide a whole ton of cool magic accessories. They do tokens, they do playmats, they do dice bags. They have tokens bearing old art from throughout the ages and some really, really gorgeous frames. They're printed on a nice cardstock. They do dice bags with classic art and magic art, as well as playmats with matching art. They recently just put out a playmat that is the floor from the Hymn to Torok art with the 4 people in a circle praying or what have you. That looks really gorgeous. But, if you're curious and you want to check them out, we do have an affiliate link. It's right on our website. It's in our videos. If you go to the affiliate link and as you're checking out, you use the coupon code Commontary, spelled as it is in our name with 2 O's and all caps, you will get 5% off and we get a little bit of a kickback from them. And, it's just a way for us to, make a little extra money, support the show. Also gets you a sweet 5% off. So go out there, get yourself some nice tokens and some nice playmats.
Get yourself something nice.
Yeah. I actually have an order in with them right now for a bunch of tokens for my cube because I have an art degree, so I might as well put it to use.
Good.
What's your announcement, Adrian?
My announcement is that I make weekly play videos. The Adrian Show. People like them, I think.
I mean, they get good views. They get views almost actually, in some cases, better than our episodes for the week. When do they come out?
I'm charismatic. Oh, yeah. They come out every Saturday. And, keep an eye on that. And other stuff that we might do.
Any idea what you're doing this week? Or can I take this as a no?
Yeah. No, I'll decide probably when I sit down on my computer. Nothing speaks to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wednesday. It's a far way away. You got what?
Yeah, that's more days. That's tomorrow, Adrian's problem.
What isn't tomorrow, Adrian's problem?
I don't know, but it'll be something I haven't played before, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, we've been doing some spicy stuff. Just want to mention that we might have some more content coming up from new people.
Yeah, that's what I was hinting at.
Yeah, go for it. Let them know. Let them know
hinting very good. What? No, that's the top secret project, Mike.
All right, there's some new content headed your guys' way with new people. That's all we got to say now. Last up, just in our upkeep, we got a Patreon. Patreon lets you support us on a per episode basis for creating this show. They're cool little perks. You get a little thing in return for some money. For example, if you were on Patreon, you would have heard the 20 minutes before this show where we were frantically planning this show out and talking about how horrible our days were. So if that's the kind of thing that appeals to you, go check us out on Patreon. You can donate whatever amount you want. You can stop at any time. You can set monthly limits so you don't, get charged more than your budget can handle. Any amount helps, and we are super appreciative of our patrons. They really make this a lot more feasible for the two of us to do. Anything you want to say about Patreon, or do we want to just get into this episode, Adrian?
Let's get into the episode. But Patreon is cool. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah, do it. All right. So what do we have for a deck tech this week?
This week we're doing Blue Red Delver or Skred Delver.
Snow Delver.
It was submitted Snow Blower. But it was submitted to our email by Patrick, and I will read his email in full now. Hey guys, I love this podcast. As a new Pauper player, I'm learning a ton from both listening to these archive shows and watching the Adrian Show match videos. Oh, you're sweet. I especially like Affinity, and I also try to play Red Deck Wins. Hey, those are both decks I played. Blue Black Delver and Goblins. Hey, future ideas on MTGO, but these don't seem as good as Affinity. I was searching your archives and cannot find an episode devoted to the UR version of Delver, and I was wondering if you would consider analyzing this deck or a similar UR Delver list in one of your episodes. I'm considering trying to play a similar deck, but the cost of many of these cards online is crazy. Even the snow-covered lands are not cheap, but the deck seems like tier 1 for sure. It is. Thanks for considering this. Well, Patrick, today's your lucky day because I'm covering the episode, and I'm also going to tell you some budget-friendly options.
Yeah. So I thought we had covered this. Like, we got this email, and I actually immediately messaged Adrian. I was like, "Didn't we do this?" Took a while, but I found out we actually covered Blue-Red Fairies, which is similar but not the same list. This is the kind of the refinement, right?
Yeah, I think that this deck is certainly better. But Patrick, if you want to check out that Blue-Red Fairy list, it might be kind of similar to what you're looking for here. Really, this deck can really leverage Skred. If you care less about Skred, and especially the Snowlands package, which are the reason this deck, partially the reason this deck is kind of expensive, I would encourage you to check out that list. It might not be much cheaper because you'll still want Hydra and Pyroblast at some point, but check it out.
Well, I'm looking. If you trim the lands for basics and you trim out the Skreds, you're saving yourself about $11.50 according to Card Order.
And that's not nothing.
Yeah.
So let's get into the deck. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Let's do it. The sideboard is definitely the most expensive part, and we will talk about a budget option for you.
Yeah. So I will also make note that this is Aaron Rubin's at the moment. He has switched from Mono Blue Delver to this deck. This deck is better positioned than Mono Blue Delver, although I think, Mike, you mentioned earlier that Mono Blue Delver actually won the most recent challenge. Is that correct?
I don't remember.
Let's just look it up real fast. We'll vindicate you or mock you mercilessly. When was the last challenge? It was on the 18th.
Yeah. Go results. Save me, Google. Save me.
I'm good.
Are you actually looking this up, or am I just frantically searching here and looking like a fool?
I'm looking it up. There's nothing's loading. Everything's very slow, but
I got there. Pauper Challenge. Number one deck.
It's mono blue Delver, but it's not the mono blue list thing. Look, this deck's playing Gataxian Probe and Augur Bolus. Come on.
So this is the very lean, close to the ground Delver list.
Right, but we're not Psychic Barrier. What? Interesting. Anyway, but we're not here to talk about that deck. We're here to talk about the Blue-Red Delver deck. So this deck, a little bit newer to the scene, definitely not unknown anymore. It's certainly a tier 1 list. It's very strong. It's dominating challenges and leagues. I don't think it's actually won a challenge yet, but it's still a deck to contend with as a big deck in the meta.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to plug him too much, but our friend Alex Ullman does meta breakdowns of every one of these challenges and uses the Karsten score pioneered by Frank Karsten. And the Karsten score kind of takes into consideration not only the number of decks from a certain archetype within a metagame, or a top 16 in this case, or I guess top 32, right? We got 32.
Yeah.
So what it does is it takes not only into consideration the number of decks that showed up, but also their wins and losses within that top bracket. So the Blue-Red Delver, while it hasn't won a challenge yet, is really, really present, and its Karsten score is very high. So it's got a lot of good finishes, not a first yet though. And we can talk about that a little bit later, but let's get into the list.
Right. So first up, we have 4 copies of the titular card, Delver of Secrets. I'm sure everyone knows what that one does. Up next, we have 4 copies of Fairy Miscreant, the little 1/1 that draws you more whenever its buddies enter the battlefield. Then we have 3 copies Augur of Bolus, and this is really what catapulted this deck to tier 1. Augur of Bolus, for those of you who've been living under a rock, is 1 and a U for a 1/3 where you look at the top 5 cards
3
of your life. 3. I'm terrible.
Wow, dude.
3 cards of your life. 3 cards. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what it does, I don't know either. Top 3 cards of your library. You pick an instant or sorcery among them, and then you put the rest onto the bottom of the deck. So this is the reason the deck is so good. There's 22 instants or sorceries. I guess, yeah, instants or sorceries in the deck. So it almost always hits. When it doesn't, it's very sad. 4-copy Spellstutter Sprite, 1 in the blue for a 1/1 that counters a spell that enters the battlefield, equal to the number of fairies you control, equal to or less than. And then 4 copies Ninja of the Deep Hours. So
yeah, we've covered all these creatures in assorted versions of blue tempo lists before. So
right, they're all very powerful. Ninja helps set up your fairies and Augur in order to keep providing card value, which was a staple of the mono blue Delver deck even before Augur of Bolus got printed. But what really makes this good are the spells.
Yeah, I do want to touch on the Augur of Bolus for a second, because part of what makes this shine a lot is the particular fact that it is a 1/3. And I know we've talked about this before on episodes, but that 1/3 body is really valuable right now, as mono green Stompy is kind of everywhere and it relies on a lot of 2/2s. So being able to kind of fog one of them until they can draw, like, your opponent does not want to waste actual pump spells killing this thing. It doesn't line up well versus Rancor, but the Rancorless hands, it really helps keep, kind of stem the bleeding, if you will.
Exactly.
But let's get into the spells.
All right. So first up, 4 copies of Brainstorm. Traditionally, I don't think this card is very good. And we are playing 8 slow fetches in this deck, which we'll get to in a second. And so the effect is very powerful. One of the best plays this deck can do is tap 2, Gush, Brainstorm away the 2 islands, and then fetch afterwards to get rid of the 2 islands. And so this deck is capable of generating a lot of gas, which is why it's so good. But really what helps shore up its other matchups is the fact that it's running 4 copies of Lightning Bolt and 4 copies of Skred in the main deck. And Skred is a card that it's R and it deals damage to a creature equal to the number of snow lands you control, which is, of course, why the deck wants to run snow lands, or rather has to run snow lands in order to work. So it shores up Delver's bad matchups by giving it these very efficient red removal tools. And that's really why the deck is so good. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
Yeah, and, when it's complemented by, we've got 4 counterspell and 4 preordain to kind of smooth your draws a little bit more and make sure you can really resolve things when you want them to. Lightning Bolt and Skred. So when Mono Blue Delver was a big thing, one of its worst matchups was Stompy. It didn't line up well versus Stompy's. Its answers lined up poorly with Stompy's threats. So you wound up kind of always being a little bit behind on the efficiency of mana. Like, you got to counter 1 spell for 2 mana that they spent 1 to cast and was better than some of your creatures in terms of raw stats. And, until you got your Spire Golem online, you were kind of disadvantaged whenever you went to block stuff, because you were either chumping or you were 2-for-1ing yourself, or getting rid of like a ninja, which you didn't want to do. The Lightning Bolt and the Skred let you have spot removal, which means that you can answer threats without having to sacrifice as much on your side. And Skred is a very powerful effect. The fact that it pings equal to the number of snow-covered lands means that you're going to be able to... This scales very well. One of the issues with a lot of red removal is once you sort of get into a later game, your opponent's playing larger and larger threats that become more and more immune. Like, you don't want to have to burn 2 lightning bolts to kill your opponent's threat. But with Skred, as long as you keep hitting land drops, Skred keeps killing larger and larger things. And I think that's a really big boon for it.
Right. Being able to scale to the threats is very strong.
And this shows up in a kind of fringe deck in Modern, Skred Red, which tries to leverage it for similar purposes.
Exactly. And then we also have, I mentioned it already, Gush. Very good. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't have anything to say.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were. Let's get into the lands. We have 4 copies of Ash Barrens, 4 copies of Evolving Wilds. So that makes our Brainstorms good. Lets us hit our 2 snow-covered mountains. It really lets us get whatever land So they're powerful effects, and they couple well with Brainstorm. Not so much with Preordain, but good with Brainstorm. Then we have 9 copies of Snow-Covered Island. So really the deck's only running 11 lands that actually tap for mana, but it's so low to the ground it almost doesn't matter.
I have a question for you. Would you rather run Preordain or Ponder in this deck specifically?
I don't know, man. That's a loaded question. I'm gonna go with Preordain. If we were running Ponder, I don't think I like running Brainstorm.
That certainly is fair. Because those 3 blue cantrips kind of all have a unique interaction. I was just thinking, one of the reasons I've been playing a decent amount of Legacy recently, and one of the reasons that Ponder is so popular in Legacy is the high density of fetch lands. And obviously our fetches are worse than the ones in Legacy by a pretty wide margin. But the ability to guarantee that you can go Ponder, put 3 cards back on top, and then shuffle away some of them with a fetch makes there be a certain appeal to me. I know that there was some discussion of this a while ago on the Reddit, and I don't think that there is a correct answer to Ponder or Preordain. I think that it is a highly dependent on context question.
Sure.
In terms of the mana base, though, I mean, Ash Barrens and Evolving Wilds are about as good as we get in terms of fixing. And oh my goodness, is Ash Barrens really like $4 a pop online?
Yeah, they're expensive.
Ooh,
they're up there.
Do we want to go into the sideboard of this?
Yeah, let's do it. First up, we have 1 copy of Dispel, everyone's favorite counter magic. I think it is. It's a great spell. 2 copies Electricity for the little dudes. 3 copies of Gorilla Shaman, and that is going to run you. Gorilla Shaman is an expensive card online, as is Hydroblast and Pyroblast. And Patrick, I'm afraid there are not a lot of replacements for these cards. Gorilla Shaman is so effective against Affinity. Hydroblast, countering red spells, and Pyroblast countering blue spells. Hydroblast look like they're at an all-time low. Are they seriously only 50 cents?
No, you're probably looking at the paper version that I included.
All right. They're
online, they're like $5, or online Hydroblast is $7.
Yeah, all right. It's expensive. But these cards are indispensable, and you will end up using them in other decks. If you're serious about investing into Pauper competitively, I think you have to spring for the Hydro and Pyroblasts. Either that, or you run like mono white or something. You play a deck that doesn't play these cards. Blue and red are the most expensive color combination in the format.
Yeah, and then we got a Relic of Progenitus, some Grave Hate because people keep playing graveyard decks. They're going to keep doing it until...
Well, it's also good against Stormbound Geist.
Yep. Yeah, and we've got 2 copies Stormbound Geist in here as well.
Exactly.
One blue for a 2/2 flyer with Undying. And we've got 1 copy of Swirling Sandstorm, which is a spicy little inclusion, though. It does kill 7 creatures out of this deck.
Yeah, but it's the hard reset button. So Swirling Sandstorm. Go ahead.
Oh no! I was agreeing with you, buddy.
Oh, okay. Swirling Sandstorm, for those of you who don't know, is spicy piece of tech. 3 in a red for a sorcery with Threshold. Swirling Sandstorm deals 5 damage to each creature without flying. So you have to have Threshold, but it's become an answer for these decks to beat the Stompy decks and keep applying pressure via Delver or Fairies.
So I have a question. Is Swirling Sandstorm the only card that you can cast and have it have no effect without it fizzling? I guess like it has no text to resolve, I guess, is what I'm getting.
Yeah, it just happens. Like the spell is cast and then nothing happens.
Because like you could cast Wrath of God into an empty board, but that effect still resolves. If you try to resolve a Swirling Sandstorm and your opponent clears your bin, it just does nothing.
Yeah. I
don't know. So I'm sure if it's not, someone else will correct us in the comments, as the internet is wont to do, but I don't know. It's always kind of a weird little nugget of information. So what about this deck makes it so much better in the current meta than mono blue?
It's fast. It can play the control route if it needs to. It has lots of card advantage engines. It just draws cards and is able to play threats that are hard to deal with and deal with your threats.
Yeah. And, obviously spell stutter sprite in an aggressive meta is good because a lot of times it's not gonna really be a stretch for it to counter whatever your opponent's playing. Your opponent's unlikely to be, or less likely to be on, hard casting an Ulamog's Crusher or something like that spell stutter does not line up well with. Instead, you're spell stuttering your opponent's Kyrian Ranger, or you're spell stuttering your opponent's Galvanic Blast, or something in that vein. I think this list is a good natural evolution of where mono blue should go, because again, when your deck, when the natural foil to your deck is taking up a huge chunk of the meta, adding in that extra color and getting access to removal and getting access to some premium sideboard cards. I mean, there is a reason that the sideboard for this deck on MitGo costs for 8 of the cards out of it, so a little over half of the sideboard costs, what is this, $90. So
yeah, it's expensive. It's a little up there.
Yeah,
106 online, it says.
Yeah. So our listener Patrick said that he's a little bit worried about the cost of the deck, and we've got two angles here. One is most of the cost of this deck is stuff you're going to reuse, right?
Right.
Hydro and Pyroblast go in every blue and red sideboard. I can't think of a deck I've seen that has access to one of them and doesn't run it. The Gorilla Shaman is always going to be the best, most powerful answer to artifacts and Affinity as a whole.
Yeah, you could. I mean, budget option. Play Smelt. Shatter.
I was going to say maybe Shattering Pulse.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
I mean, it's unlikely that you'll get the buyback online, but it does do some stuff. Another option is potentially, although it does serve a different role, you could play a Null in the sideboard, which is blue, counter an enchantment or an artifact.
Yeah.
For the Hydra and
pretty good.
Man, Hydra and Pyroblast are so tricky to find replacements for.
You have to run like extra dispels or like some sort of extra counter spell. I don't know, Flame Slash.
Yeah, this one is real rough. There is no good way to replace those, but if you're okay with running a slightly subpar list, those 8 cards crash the cost of this deck down to like less than half of what it was. That said, though, if you are getting serious about Pauper and you want to be playing a competitive tier 1 list, I would say this is a great option. It hasn't been putting up quite the results in the leagues that it has been in the challenges, but we've talked before about the differences between a long format 7-round tournament with a cut to top 8 versus 5 matches against similar result having opponents, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's a really good deck. I wish I had more time to play Pauper, really, because I kind of want to try this one out. It looks much more appealing than Mono Blue ever did to me. Have you had a chance to play around with this one? I know that your good buddy Aaron has been playing it, but
just a very little bit.
Maybe this is the deck for this week.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not very good with it. Yes. I'm just not very good with it.
I mean, sometimes we do stuff we're uncomfortable with.
Wow. throwing some major shade over there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how about we go into our discussion topic now?
So, our first discussion topic for today is the fact that Hour of Devastation spoilers have started. We've started to see Bolus's plan unfold, and apparently it's turning everyone into cool blue Terminators and killing the Gatewatch.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Villainous stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the aesthetic of the Lazotep soldiers is real good. I don't know. I hope a Gatewatch member dies. It could be fun. Or turns against the rest of them. I don't know. Just spitballing.
Johnny's already dead.
Who is that?
We really need another planeswalker on top of the heap. A Johnny, Elspeth, Vincer. Being a white planeswalker that'll kill you.
Johnny is very much alive. He was in Aether Revolt.
YOLO.
I mean, there aren't that many dead planeswalkers. It's mostly just Vronos, who got completely destroyed by Garrick.
Yeah.
But we've got some spoilers, and I think the most relevant one so far, and we're going to kick it off, is we got a cycle of cycling lands. The cycle.
Are they any good, Mike?
Well, let's talk about it. So Pauper already has 2 cycles of cycling lands. The first one was from Urza's Saga, and this includes Drifting Meadow and its friends. And there's one for each color, and each one of them cycles for 2 generic. And for those who don't know, cycling reads pay the mana cost, discard this card, draw a card. Then in Onslaught, we got a cycle that includes Barrenmore, which is they tap for one. They come in tapped. They tap for one color, and they cycle for one of that color. Now, this new collection of them cycle for 1 generic and 1 of the color they produce. And there's 1 for each color. They all come in tapped. But the key part here is they have the subtype Desert. And apparently, Hour of Devastation is a Desert Matters set. So you're not feeling too hot on these, I sense.
The only time these will be good is if and only if it turns out that deserts are going to matter in Pauper, because otherwise it's the worst of both of them. You can't play them in Tron for the colorless mana cost, and you don't want to play them in the colored decks because you already have ones that cycle for less mana. So it would really have to be exactly, there is some sort of Desert Matters card in Pauper that people want to play.
Well, let me hit you with this. They have 2 Desert Matters cards at common that we've already had spoiled for us. We've got Sidewinder Naga, which is 2 generic and a green for a 3/2. Not great, but as long as you control a desert or there is a desert in your graveyard, Sidewinder Naga gets +1/+0 and has trample. So whether you cycle or play the deserts, they can affect cards in this set. Another example is Gilded Ceradon, which is 4 and red for a 4/4. When it attacks, if you control a desert or there's a desert card in your graveyard, target creature can't block this turn. So it's a 4/4 that falters something. So,
all right.
Do either of these convince you?
No.
Yeah. I was going to say, if they do, we've got some talking to do off air. But
we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, these are not super impressive. If we get a good effect with this text, the desert in play or in your graveyard, these might matter.
I was going to say, what if you had a card that fetched deserts? But even then, why wouldn't you just play fetches in basics?
I mean, if just spitballing here, what if there is like a Farseek that grabs a desert and puts it into play and then untaps it? Like, I know they're not printing that, but would that make you consider this? Like a Farseek that ETB's untapped?
I feel like there's already something that does this in the format and it does it better, but I don't know.
There's Rampant Growth that fetches basics. Never mind.
Those come into play tapped.
Rampant Growth?
Yeah, don't they?
Am I thinking of a different card? Because if you're saying multiple lands, I think you're thinking of Kadama's Reach. But Rampant Growth. Oh no, Rampant Growth puts it in tapped. You are correct, sir.
Yeah.
Farseek is just anything that doesn't have the forest subtype, which is important for formats where you have dual lands. So far we've seen nothing inspiring in terms of Desert Matters.
No.
And we don't have Astral Slide or any of the Cycling Matters cards outside of our good buddy Horror of the Broken Lands. So as of now, I'm unimpressed by these. There is a spoiler, though, that I forgot to bring up in the pre-show and we should talk about. Oasis Ritualist. 3 and a green, 2/4 Naga Druid. Tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Then it has tap, exert Oasis Ritualist, add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool. With the reminder text, an exerted creature won't untap during your next untap step. So, Adrian, what does this represent a 2-card combo with?
Freed from the Real. I forgot about this card.
Yeah, I don't think we've had a tap for 2 creature yet. Now, Freed from the Real, for those who don't know, is an enchantment from Kamigawa block that is 2 and a blue for an aura enchant creature, blue untap enchanted creature, or blue tap enchanted creature. So with Oasis Ritualist, you use its second ability, add 2 blue, use one of them to untap it, do it again, and just generate infinite mana of any color you like. Is this good?
That is Freed from the Real good. I'm not sure if this makes the deck that much better. Actually, no, I guess it does, because now you don't have to play all those dorky defenders in your deck.
Well, yeah, I think up until now, the version of that that's seen the most success is the version that runs Lifespark Spellbomb as well as what's the other one? Wind Zendikon. So it turns one of your you Giga Drowse your opponent at their end step or before their combat step, depending on how close to dying you are, and then you go off on your own turn with a hasty freed target, or quote unquote hasty. With Oasis Ritualist, you do have to wait a turn, but a 2/4 without a lot of black removal in the format kind of puts your opponent on having exactly Flame Slash or Double Bolt. And I kind of like that.
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
Also, I will say I absolutely love the fact that they're exploring the design space of Exert as an additional cost on a tap ability. I think that's really good. Oh, actually, as I keep going, there keep being like more and more stuff to talk about. So we now know what Eternalize does. This new ability, it works exactly like Embalm. You exile. It's on creatures. You exile the creature from your graveyard, and you get a copy of it. Except it's a 4/4 and it's a black zombie. In addition, to
it's always black. It looks like, except for the white one, which I thought was pretty interesting.
So they're all black. And they're all 4/4s, which is interesting. For example, the first one we saw was it was a rare, but it was a 1/1 double strike for 2 mana, and it eternalizes for 5. So for 5 mana, if this thing dies, you get a 4/4 double strike, which is absurd. The only one we've gotten spoiled at common, though, is Steadfast Sentinel, which is 3 and a white for a 2/3 with Vigilance, and it has Eternalize for 4 white. So for 4 mana, you get a 2/3 Vigilance, and then later in the game, you get a 4/4 Vigilance for 6. Not loving it, to be honest.
Nah, not the best.
Another mechanic showed up at common as well, though. Afflict, and Kenra Eternal is the only example we have so far. It is 1 and a black for a 2/2. Afflict 1. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 1 life. And this is a sight less exciting than the one that we saw at Rare that dumps instants and sorceries. But do you think we're going to see a good Afflict creature?
Not on the level of casting free instants and sorceries, no. Afflict creature has to do something that your opponent doesn't want to block it, or like wants to block it, but like can't really profitably, right? So just losing life doesn't seem very good, because we already have cards like Pulse Tracker, like if just losing life doesn't really seem that good. It would have to be something like Ninja, like if they don't block, draw a card.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like
then it's like Death Touch. I don't know.
So in this case, you've got a bear that if they block it, they still get pinged for 1. So it kind of seems like, you just kind of have to suck up the 1 damage to kill this thing in combat.
Right. Would you rather take 2 damage or kill this thing and take 1 damage?
I think it's the latter. So I think,
of course it is.
I think if we get an Ophidian effect, a draw card when this hits someone, then we're talking. I also would like to put in a prediction. We're going to see a 0 power afflict creature. I think it's going to happen where it has some sort of effect if it hits, or
I think it will as well.
Some sort of effect where if it's unblocked, it like gets plus something. But that's just me spitballing. So far, Afflict and Eternalize both kind of whiffs for our format, but we've also only seen one example of each. So give it time, folks, is what we're saying.
Yes.
How about you fill us in on what's happening in Italy besides the discourse?
The spiciest of discourses. So yeah, they just had Pauper in 2017 down there. Boros Monarch won the event. Thank you, Matteo. That's the name of the winner.
Bringing you and your friends' honor on the battlefield of Italy.
Yes, so that's a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool metagame breakdown. I just thought we'd go ahead and cover the Boros Monarch list just a tad, and then go over the top 8. Boros Monarch because I know it, and because Matteo was running Orm's Thunder in his sideboard, which I think is really cool.
What does Orm's Thunder do?
Sorry, I gotta restart notification. That's why I paused there. Orm's Thunder is 2 and a white for an instant with kicker red, destroy target artifact or enchantment. If Orm's Thunder was kicked, it also deals damage equal to that permanent's converted mana cost to target creature. So it's potentially a 2/4/1 with a kicker. So against Affinity, it's like, destroy target Frogmite, kill target Mirror Enforcer, or destroy target Mirror Enforcer, kill target Carapace Forger.
Yeah, I really, really like this if you're expecting a heavy artifact meta. The catch being that enchantment mode, not so great.
Well, I'll also note that he didn't run any gorilla shamans. He ran 2 ancient grudges instead, which I think is pretty interesting. Maybe there's not a lot of affinity.
Especially given that gorilla shaman in paper is like 50 cents.
Yeah, there might not be a lot of what's the word I'm looking for here? There might there might not be a lot of affinity in Italy. That's what I'm trying to say.
Although I've got to admit, like, why in that case, why play Ancient Grudge? Like, what other matchup does the kicker mode of it really shine?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Maybe this isn't. There's a billion stories. Maybe this isn't like Gorilla Shaman. He's also playing Flare Husk, so that's kind of weird too.
What would the Flare Husk be for here? Is it just another cheap body to,
Well, I guess it's a cheap body. It turns on Metalcraft, and you can equip it to a flyer.
I mean, you could also just equip it to Palace Sentinels and have a 3/5 like that. Chews through most of the format and forces most stompy threats, even with a Rancor, to burn a pump spell to live through combat and hit in.
Oh, you know what you can also do? You can bounce it with Core Skyfisher or Glinthawk to rebuy the 1/1.
That's also a fair point. I'm actually kind of liking Flare Husk the more you talk about it, but I also haven't put in the
I actually think it's
hours
pretty
with this
interesting.
deck.
I actually think it's pretty interesting. I might try it out. Also, one of Mortuary Mire, which I'm not a big fan of, but Aaron did point out to me the other day that if you can continuously pick this back up with Core Sky, if you have 2 Core Skyfishers in this card, you have an infinite amount of Core Skyfishers.
Yes, if one of them dies, you can get it back with the other one. You get it back with the Mortuary Mire, you play it, Mortuary Mire goes back to hand. If one of them dies, repeat.
Yeah. So in that aspect, that's pretty good.
Having the off-color land, though, how much does that hurt? I mean, this deck's already running 3 Radiant Fountains, so that brings you up to 4 lands that don't produce useful mana all the time.
Prophetic Prism helps cover for that a little bit, I think.
Okay, that's fair, but I don't know. I just worry about the cost. There's a real cost of running these off-color lands.
I agree, and it's also at the expense of more artifact lands. Mateo's only running 3 Great Furnaces and 3 Ancient Dens. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
So maybe the Flare Husk is to offset the Mortuary Mire to get a little bit more grindy options in there.
Yeah. But up next, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Walk us through this top 8.
Up next, we have Stompy, cool. We have Boros Koldatha, so the tokens build. Wait a second. It says Koldatha Boros. Oh, it's playing Koldatha Rebirth and Palace Sentinel? Huh. That's pretty cool. But no No,
No rally. Oh no,
no,
there's
no
one
battle
rally.
screech. No
No
battle
battle
screech.
screech. Interesting. So cutting battle screech in favor of Kuldotha Rebirth, and still getting to run the Ichor Wellspring.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So really, it's the Boros Koldatha list, but with Palace Sentinel. Yeah, that is weird. This person is playing Gorilla Shaman. Then we have another Stompy list. We have Snowblower, another Stompy. Oh, wow, Stompy. Affinity, cool. Let's check that out. Looks pretty Affinity.
Yep.
And Rovatron is the final list in this top 8. So that's a lot of aggro and only one control deck.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I guess
this
Monarch.
this is not super different than the online meta. And we should mention it. The online ban list and card pool is in effect for Pauper Challenges. So
That's true.
not really a huge surprise for me. But kind of interesting to see what happens with that a paper tournament with the Mitgo card pool and ban list yields pretty much similar results.
Yeah.
So, Paupergeddon, what can we glean from this, if anything?
The meta is exactly where you think it is. Stompy's a strong, I don't know the whole field, but Stompy, like all the major archetypes are represented here. The Boros deck, Affinity, Stompy, the Tron list, and the UR Delver list. I really think this could have been anyone's game out of this top 8. You know what I mean?
Let me hit you with this. I actually have a meta breakdown for you. It was in another post. So the most represented deck, contrary to your beliefs, was Affinity with 22 out of a total of and they don't have a total on this graph. Great. Looks like probably like 80 plus. Yeah, well over 80 people. 22 of those were Affinity. So Affinity pretty well represented. So I think actually Gorilla Shaman was probably a pretty decent choice this weekend, but Orim's Thunder probably spicy enough to get there sometimes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I will also, not to backtrack too much, Orim's Thunder is much better if it's not in your opener. Like as opposed to Gorilla Shaman, because you really want that Gorilla Shaman turn 1 or 2.
Yeah, or Thunder, you can draw it way later and it's still fine.
Yeah. Also, there's a decent amount of tap lands in Boros Monarch, so maybe the fact that you can't reliably turn 2 and activate a Gorilla Shaman is a downside that this person weighed as being just too much. I'm looking in here. Affinity had a large showing. Stompy had 15 decks, 10 Blue Red Delver, 10 Din Rovatron, 10 Boros Rally the Peasants, 9 Blue Black Flicker, which did not get within the top 8. But if I look through the top 16, I'm also not seeing it. So that was crowded out of the metagame. In the top 16, worth noting, there's a Blue Black Teachings list. Always interesting to see those still kicking about. Especially with the combo of Gurmag Angler, Augur of Bolus, Muldrifter, Mnemonic Wall, Archaeomancer, Thorn of the Black Rose out of the sideboard. Ooh, this actually looks good. I kind of like this.
Indubitably.
It's running it's running Sunscorched Desert with Ghostly Flicker, Mnemonic Wall, and Archaeomancer. The exact thing I dreaded would happen when I saw Sunscorched Desert.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible, but sometimes your win con is bad. That's a thing, right?
Sure.
Just kidding. Person in Italy whose name I am not going to try and pronounce for fear of offending you and your lovely pasta making compatriots.
Oh my God, Mike.
No, I'm sure Italy is a lovely place. They have an amazing pauper scene. I'm just looking through the rest of this. Yep, another Snow Delver. Oh, this aggro elves list with Thornwield Archer, Wirewood Herald, Ulamog's Crusher. Ooh, this is kind of spicy. Not super spicy, but spicier than your average elves list. But this looks like a really good, varied metagame with lots of the online metagame represented pretty analogously here. And I don't know. I'm kind of excited to see that, the online metagame isn't too much of a tainted sample, if you will, by factors revolving around the league play versus large scale tournament. It is interesting to compare and contrast this, though, against the challenges where Stompy really hasn't done that great, has it?
Not as good as it does in the leagues.
No, definitely not. I don't know. It's always interesting to see glimpses into these little metagames that have the same card pool as a larger known metagame, but kind of come to different conclusions. Also, I'm looking at this Dinrovatron in 16th place. It has Fangren Marauder as a hate card out of the board, and I love that dearly. That is a doozy of a hate card versus Affinity.
Yeah, I hate it.
I know. Fangren Marauder, is that your least favorite card in Pauper? Just period?
But Gorilla Shaman, I hate both of them.
I know, but Fangren Marauder also means
Fangren Marauder is a little more tilty for me personally.
Even if you don't have the ATOG on board, like, you don't attack profitably into that, do you?
You just almost can't win anymore.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. But again, Paupergeddon happens fairly frequently. Is it just a yearly event? I could have sworn. I
really don't know.
I guess if it's called Paupergeddon 2017, I can only guess that it's gotta be once a year. But if you want to check out the results from this, check out magictitans.it and look under their Pauper section. They've got all the information about it. It is in Italian, so you might want to plug a URL over into Google and click translate this page so you can actually see what's going on if you don't happen to speak Italian, like me. Adrian.
Yes.
We're pulling up on 50 minutes here. Do we want to give these lovely folks a little bit of comedy enjoyment here before we take them to the serious part of the outro?
Certainly. Togetherer. This one's so much easier because I just hit random card. All right, Mike. I'm doing it.
What do we got?
Card. Well, that's a planes. We're hitting it again. Wait, where's the random card? There we go. Oh, that one's too easy. Here we go. The one I did mention was Cop White. All right. We have a 3 mana total, a white and 2. God, I can't talk today. Creature, Human Knight. Whenever blank attacks, it gets +0/+3 until end of turn. And it is a 2/2. It was originally printed in Exodus, and it looks like it got printed in Starter 99 and Portal, as well as Dual Decks, Divine versus Demonic, and Tempest Remastered.
Does this have the word banalish in its name?
No, and that's not that one.
Okay, in that case, I actually don't know this one. What is it?
Charging Paladin.
Huh. I've not heard of this one.
Pretty terrible. Pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad.
We're going to hit it again. Next up, we have 5 mana, 3 green, creature, fungus. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on X. Creatures you control have removed 2 spore counters from this creature. Create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. It was originally printed in Future Sight and was reprinted in Modern Masters, the first one.
Does it put a counter on itself or everything? Oh, no.
Just you.
No, never mind.
This
is Sporoloth Ancient.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah, it's the one that makes
ding.
It's the one that makes the sapling cost cheaper.
I don't know if you can get this one. This is a 2 mana. It's basically white grizzly bear, but it's a cat.
But it's a cat. What set is it from?
It's from M11, M10, M12, and M13. So Wizards must have liked white grizzly bear a lot. Therese Nielsen is the artist.
Oh, Therese Nielsen is the artist? Oh, that means I should know this.
It's a large feline with a mane. The word is in its name. It is a lion. And it's
steadfast
silvery.
lion. I don't know. What is it?
Silver coat lion.
Huh.
Whatever.
Yeah.
That one was. All right. Next up, we got a new one.
Ooh, curse jar, buddy.
So, whoops. Next up, we have one more.
Yeah, one more.
Instant. One in the blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and that player discards if you control a zombie. It is from Shadows over Innistrad.
Deterrence. This is the one with the huge, creepy, like Resident Evil end boss zombie in the background, right?
That is correct. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
You did good.
Yeah, I did decently. So I've got a little bit of pre-outro thing before you actually take us out of the show. I am going to be going on vacation from some dates in the future. We've got an upcoming episode we're going to pre-record. We're going to do a mailbag episode. If you have questions you would like us to answer, and, hey, if you want to make it easy on us, just ask us non-magic related questions so that way we can just answer them honestly. Please start sending those to colorcommentary@gmail.com. This means you guys don't have to miss a week of our content, but it also means that we have an easy episode so we can double record and make sure that there is a week of content there. And we're not desperately trying to hammer out 2 episodes in one evening and burning out and giving you guys subpar, non-entertaining content. That's all I've got to say. So, Adrian, take us on out of the show.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our Patreons. Please consider supporting us if you like the show. Check below this video, the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you that if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or by emailing us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to Pat's Games and L. Until next week, this is Adrian and Mike, and we are signing off for Color Commentary.